believe that we do not choose our careers. I believe that our careers choose us.
We take ourselves too seriously. Yes, we have a purpose of what we are doing, but it should not engulf our other emotions in life.
In any situation in life, we are either driving or we are being driven.
Women in leadership, say 10 years back and now, what are the different challenges that they are facing?
You have to work like you don't have kids, you have to parent like you don't have work, and you have to have the body of having neither.
Imposter syndrome that we are talking about, how can they let go of this imposter syndrome?
Absolutely incredible. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I can see that you are also an expert in this field, and I really appreciate being on here.
Hi everyone, I'm Mohsina, founder of Quantum Leaders Program and Self-Discovery Podcast. Welcome back to yet another episode of Self-Discovery Podcast, a space where we uncover the mindset, beliefs, and inner evolution of leaders who are redefining what true leadership looks like from the inside out. On today's episode of Self-Discovery Podcast, I'm joined by a guest whose work is transforming the lives and careers of high-achieving women around the world, Dr. Sarah Alsavi Davis. Dr. Sarah is a global award-winning clinical psychologist and a leading executive leadership coach known for helping ambitious women and corporate leaders break through imposter syndrome, self-doubt, and the internal barriers that quietly limit their potential. With over 15 years of clinical research and coaching experience, she brings together neuroscience-backed strategies, deep therapeutic expertise, and powerful leadership developmental tools. She is the founder of Relationship Success Lab, Heal Trauma Bonding, and the Lead with Authority Clinic, ventures through which she supports individuals, couples, and senior professionals in rewriting long-held patterns and confidence, relationships, and communication. Her work has been featured in Business Insider, Forbes, and recognized with a 2024 Global Recognition Award for her impact in psychology and coaching. Dr. Sarah specializes in helping high-performing women step into real authority, speaking with confidence, leading with clarity, and elevating their influence in high-stake environments. Her mission is simple but profound: to help people unlock the mindset, presence, and inner strengths required to lead powerfully and authentically. Hi, Sarah. Welcome to my show. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
For listeners who don't know you, what do you actually do? How would you like to answer this question? And what was the first thing that pulled you into the field of belief changing for corporate women?
Simply, I help amazing women become who they truly are, to strip away the self-doubts, the self-criticism, the uncertainty of themselves so they can really lead with authority, so that they feel as good as they look on paper.
That's really profound and beautiful, but does it really work? As in, how does it work? What are the changes that we see from someone who has come to you, taken your program, spoke to you, taken the sessions? What are the things, if you can tell us, like in
What's the difference?
three aspects
Yeah.
that we see the difference between what she was and what she is after your sessions?
People who come to me are often really good on paper. They are entering boardrooms, they are working really hard, they're achieving, wanting to step up, but simultaneously they are constantly haunted by this feeling of panic, this feeling of anxiety. They spend half an hour in the bathroom before they enter a meeting just because they are trying to regulate themselves, but they are just tormented with beliefs that they are not good enough and that they're constantly pretending towards other people. They're worried that they're going to be found out. But more importantly, they have this identity gap in the sense that they are wanting to be a particular persona. They believe that there is a version of a particular life out there for them, but they are operating at a much lower level, at another identity. And our work really bridges the gap. And the difference between my work and other people who are in this space or other coaches is that most coaches focus on strategy. They
Mhm.
focus on building habits, changing behaviors. But I would say that is really an outside in approach, and that's actually really limited. And research
Mhm.
shows that people who enter that have around about an 80% relapse rate. So it's really ineffective. Whereas actually, I go from the inside out. And so instead of focusing in on changing habits and behaviors, I actually focus in on changing the internal system. So the nervous
Mhm.
system and subconscious beliefs. And
Mhm.
from then, the behaviors naturally follow. And actually, we narrow that identity gap so that they can be who they truly are.
If you can tell me that, if someone comes to you, say, has this belief that they're intimidated in an environment, which is probably there's a lot of peers or bosses who are listening to them and they're not able to present well or speak well, but they have done the written content, they have worked on the project, but when it comes to presentation, they are quite intimidated. So, how is it that you are going to help them?
It's really about how they see themselves in comparison to other people because they are intelligent. They've done the work, like you said, they've done the work. So it's not that
Mhm.
they don't know it, but the problem comes up when they are in front of someone else. The problem comes up when they are with their bosses, their colleagues, and it's all about the relational dynamics that happen in the background, the stuff that
Mhm.
is not spoken about, but the stuff that's felt.
Mhm.
And that's really intrusive. So, the work that we do independently is really changing the relationship narrative so
Mhm.
that if they are stronger and they are standing taller internally in terms of their own pillar, then actually they are no longer intimidated. So, those dynamics no longer affect them in those particular ways, but they feel
Mhm.
like they are in the driver's seat.
Absolutely. And that's such a small change. At the same time, it impacts so well in the mind when these kind of fears or beliefs people have. Dr. Sarah, please tell me when you launched Lead with Authority, okay, what made you leave the safety of the system and how did you handle the voices saying this is quite risky? And I'm sure there were few people around you who would not encourage you to take this step. So, what made you do this anyhow?
You're absolutely right. There are a lot of people against it. The truth is that I cannot tolerate having an idea and at least trying it. And it's for the fact that I've personally done my own internal work, and
Mhm.
this is where all my methodology comes from. This is the reason why I've won multiple awards around this. But it's for the fact that I have that internal belief in myself and that I can do it, and I am willing to bet on myself as opposed to betting on the system. I
Mhm.
would much rather bet on myself. And so the thing that I've created is something that sincerely does lead with service. So if
Mhm.
it's not supportive to other people, then there's no point. So everything has to be in support to other people.
Mhm.
And it's through that and through my own self belief and through the execution of aiding people and seeing the outcome, that's really what allowed this to flourish.
So, if someone comes to you, how do you make them aware or how do you identify that they have this belief or that fear that they are operating from? How do you identify it? If, say, someone comes to you for sessions, first thing is awareness, identification. How is it that you identify? Do you go ahead with storytelling or, you listen to them and then you identify their beliefs? What is it that happens?
So it could be in a couple of different ways. So one of the first things that I like to do with clients is that I'll do an assessment with them, and within that assessment, I pick up on certain personality traits. And
Mhm.
within those personality traits, there will be hidden beliefs that
Mhm.
I'm informed of as a psychologist. And so knowing these personality traits, I'm able to accurately identify with a 95% certainty of what the hidden beliefs are around self doubt, criticism, or even conditional beliefs in the sense of I have to sacrifice myself in order to succeed, those kinds of things. And from then, we would do a lot of investigation in terms of their background, their upbringing, but also in terms of their career and how it is that they perceive themselves with other people. So it's really done within an assessment phase. And people do have slightly different belief systems in the sense of what might be active at that particular time or what they might experience in different moments in their life. But when we've gathered that, then we make a really specialized, tailored plan in terms of how it is that we combat and rewrite those stories.
And you started with this work. I'm sure there is some beliefs that you changed for yourself to actually begin this kind of a work. First thing, it is different. Very few people are doing this. Second of all, it's a risk coming from an environment of, safety. Going there, out there, putting yourself, educating people first that this is something that is really important. So, how did you manage this and what are the beliefs that you changed for yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, I was just embroiled in this belief that I was never good enough and I had to do more. So the belief of not being good enough, ironically, was trying to help me to be good enough. And
Mm-hmm.
so me criticizing myself was with the aim of me getting better. But
Mm-hmm.
actually, what I was doing is I was destroying my soul. And I got to a point where I realized actually life isn't worth living if I'm just constantly destroying myself because I'm living a life of destruction. And even though I was doing well on paper and I had really good job and I had good friends, had good relationship, so even though things looked well on paper, I was destroying myself internally and I was just haunted constantly. But
Mm-hmm.
I was the problem. And so I was the person who had to change, really. And so from then, I started doing the self-healing work and really working on my nervous system and really calibrating that so that I never associated rest with threat, that
Mm-hmm.
actually rest could be safe and I could succeed without criticism and that I could perform without judgment and that I could even mess up and that being okay. And so these were things that I really had to embrace and embody. And so going back to your earlier question, how did I leave the system and feel safe?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I also learnt that it's okay if I fail, but
Yeah.
actually it's not even a failure, it's a massive lesson in life.
That's really true. So for women walking into a high stake meeting tomorrow, okay, and with their heart racing and they don't know that, what if they miss out something in the meeting or they're not able to speak, they fumble or not able to put their points across, what is something that they can do 10 minutes before the meeting probably, which will shift this energy into something which is empowering, something confident and ability to go ahead and just present it the way she wanted and comes back with that feeling that, I did it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I want to share three different techniques. First is the two inhalations and one exhalation. So whenever we get anxious, our breath is the first thing to go. So the two inhalations is that the first inhalation, we take the biggest, longest, deepest breath that we've taken in all day, hold at the top, and then we
Mhm.
take in a second breath of air.
Mhm.
And then we exhale fully from our mouth and really pushing out from our diaphragm.
Right.
And we can do that for a cycle of between 5 and 7, and that should be enough to at least calm down the nerves to begin with.
Mhm.
So that's the first tip. The second tip is that there are certain points in the body where adrenaline and cortisol essentially get clogged up. And
Mhm.
so it's up to us to be able to shift them. Now, this is it might sound a little bit strange, but I promise it does work. And it's based on a technique called emotional freedom technique where essentially we tap certain points in the body. So this one's a really good one. Like if you hold a fist and you start tapping here at the side of the fist and you do that for 90 seconds, so a
Mhm.
minute and a half, that also starts to regulate the nervous system.
Mhm.
So these are all things strategy-wise that we can do to calm our bodies down. The final third technique, I would say, is recognizing that all of us, including you, including me, we are all sources of energy and we are
Mhm.
all having this human experience. And anything that we're experiencing is simply part of the human experience. then actually that doesn't take away from our source energy. And that's really important to hold on to, because as you're entering this meeting, it's simply a human experience out of all the other experiences that you're having, and you're just passing through life. Like, this body that we're holding is part of our human experience, and we're just channeling through. And the moment that we hold on to that, then we actually reduce how daunting that meeting looks, because actually it's okay, we're just passing through. And you've done the work, and even if you haven't, that's okay, part of the human experience.
Yes.
But actually that just really starts to ground us in what are we actually dealing with, and that we are capable, we are bigger than the situation.
That's true. And also, I feel that, we take ourselves too seriously, our work or ourselves. Yes, we have a purpose of what we are doing, but it should not engulf our other emotions in life. So, absolutely rightly put, I think these three important points, if someone does it, you're anyways releasing whatever the anxiety, the stress, the tension that you have. That's amazingly put. Dr. Sarah, I want to ask you this. Okay, how do you define an empowered individual? What are the three differences, if you have to put it in a box, of an empowered and a person who is still to get there? Three aspects of
The
that.
first one is someone who is always in the driver's seat, and they're conscious of being in the driver's seat.
Mm-hmm.
So I sincerely believe that in any situation in life, we are either driving or we are being driven. And if we're
Mm-hmm.
being driven, sometimes we go to places that we don't necessarily want to go by people who we don't particularly like. People who are not empowered, they constantly feel pulled by other people. They feel like they are obliged to do things for other people. And actually, what's happening is that someone else is in the driver's seat of their life. They're not in the driver's seat. Whereas an
Mm-hmm.
empowered person is always in the driver's seat, regardless of what's happening. So that's the first
Mm-hmm.
thing. The second thing is that an empowered person always takes risks,
Mm-hmm.
regulated risks, but they always take risks. And a risk is never seen as something harmful, but actually it's seen as such a beautiful venture that they're going on. And they know that they're going to get one of two things, that they either get the result that they want or they get the lesson that they needed. And that's it. There's nothing else. And the final thing is that they are their constant cheerleader, but they are also the person who is going to really slap themselves in the face when they've messed up, in the sense of they're going to hold themselves accountable. So if they notice themselves going back into unhealthy patterns, or they've screwed up somehow, or they didn't adhere to something that they'd committed to, a promise that they made to themselves, they will stand up. They are willing to take on feedback, and they know the difference between feedback and criticism. And they are operating from a clean slate because they are constantly cheering themselves, and they're not allowing the negative energy to destroy them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Women in leadership, then versus now. So, say 10 years back and now. What are the different challenges that they are facing?
Well, actually, okay, so I think as time has progressed, more and more women have entered into leadership roles because of, there's been a growth in terms of feminism. But I think the risk that we very much face is that women are now in a position where we're still expected to be the mother, and therefore we are the default parent.
Mm-hmm.
That is if you have a family. And if you don't have a family, well, actually, you better be freezing your eggs, which I've heard companies paying for women to freeze their eggs, which I think is very telling in itself. But also, there is this expectation of a woman to hustle just the same as a man. There's this really obscure situation that we're entering at the moment, because women are still not equally paid as much as men, right? There
Yes.
is that pay gap. And yet, there is this argument now saying that women are having so much because there are more women present in leadership roles, whereas actually it's still not where we need to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's almost like, okay, well, I'm in a leadership role, I'm earning more than what my prior generations would have earned. And so it's almost saying, hey, you've had enough, so please stop now. That's the undertone. But in reality, it's not, because we are not equal. And women now, just on a broader scale, are facing a massive challenge of you have to work like you don't have kids, you have to parent like you don't have work, and you have to have the body of having neither. Right. And so, how do you deal with that? We're literally creating an impossible situation.
Pressure of the mindset coming from men, and it has become an environment, not just men as the leaders who are up there, or people who are managing it comes from that, and it just boils down to the bottom. So what happens is you feel it no matter what kind of a position you are leading in the team, even if the senior most to the junior most employees, you feel that pressure from the very beginning. So Dr. Sarah, you have been working with women since some time now, and you have understood this psychology. Okay, what are the three fears that a woman operates from a leadership perspective, and how they should not?
Fear of not being good enough,
Mm-hmm.
fear of being found out that they're a fraud, and fear that they have to sacrifice themselves. And none of those are accurate. None of those are true. The fear of not being good enough, that's absolutely not true, because what they're doing there is they're equating their paycheck or the outcome of their work with their worth as a human. But your worth as a human is infinite, so that they're totally separate things. The fear of having to sacrifice, that again is inaccurate, because actually, if you're sacrificing, you're building something, but then you're being betrayed by the thing that you're building. And so that doesn't make sense in itself. All of these fears are just completely inaccurate.
And that's absolutely true. I have spoken to women leaders, and they have told me that, when they go inside, because they are juggling so many responsibilities, so they have to totally become a different person when they come on the board. Okay. And when they go back, they are totally different person because they have to let go of everything. They cannot bring back work at home. So they are different persons. So imposter syndrome that we are talking about, can you like tell me one thing that people can let go, no matter gender? How can they let go of this imposter syndrome?
Imposter syndrome is really the fear that you'll be found out.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality, or the thing that I would invite people to ask themselves is, well, if you are so worried about being found out, what does that say about your character? And what it
Mm-hmm.
actually says about their character is that they're somebody who works really, really hard.
Yes.
That's not the truth, right? And so if that's true, that you're somebody who works really, really hard, then would other people not see that anyway?
Yeah.
Does that still not stay true?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing to really hold on to. Because this thing about being found out, that's this fear voice talking. And what the fear is trying to do is it's really trying to get you to be better. That's all it is. But if you're already somebody who works exceptionally hard,
Mm-hmm.
then that's something to remain grounded to.
Amazing. So, Dr. Sarah, before we end this, one last question. If you would not have been a doctor in the clinical psychology area and you would not have been doing this, what would define you as a person from the human angle of it?
That's a really good question. I'm struggling to answer this because I believe that we do not choose our careers. I believe that our careers choose us. However way it goes, but I believe that our careers choose us, and they choose us because of our personality type. There is something in that career that pulls us in, and it's magnetic, and somehow it just happens.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that on some level, the reason why I was drawn or it pulled me in was because I had that constant self-critical voice. And actually, if I didn't get pulled in, then I would still be operating from that place. I mean, maybe I would have done a healing work in another way, maybe, I don't know, but I would definitely still be in that place for sure.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for being on my self discovery podcast. It was really amazing. The things that you spoke about, it's not just the need of the world, it is, something very personal for me as well. Because, I have worked on myself, I have worked on my beliefs that has probably blocked me from many other aspects of life. So I feel what you're doing is amazing, and I'm helping women as well. Okay, in this field, I have spoken to, had sessions with thousands of women across the world, and I have understood that these beliefs that you're talking about, it comes from conditioning, it comes from environment that they are in, the thought process, the self talk that they go ahead with the responsibilities coming in. I really resonated with this podcast. And thank you so much for sharing your clarity, your thought process, and the ways how people can shift. If they're not even into healing, they can shift these things with the exercises that you have mentioned. So amazing.
Absolutely incredible. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I can see that you are also an expert in this field, and I really appreciate being on here. And I'm just glad more and more people are talking about this because it is absolutely something that needs to be acknowledged. We need to reduce the identity gap.